like a Mustang. See ya. I gotta watch on my wrist is a bust down. See ya. I'm tryna hop on a flight out of town. See ya. But I sent my baby to bring it around.
With the Black Effect Podcast Festival coming up, a lot of podcasters are focused on one thing, getting in the room. And don't get me wrong, that matters. But I want you to think a step ahead. You actually learn how to create your own room and see the real power that isn't just about showing up, but about creating your own stage, where you get to control the experience, you get to build the relationships, and where your podcast actually starts to pay you back. So today I'm breaking down how to turn your podcast audience, yes, even if you have a small one, into micro events that generate income, content, and community. My name is Danny Marie. I am your podcast bestie. And if you don't know, this is what I do as a podcast bestie. I am helping indie podcasters monetize their platform, teaching you how to launch, grow your podcast. And then if you are a business or advertiser, I'm also connecting you with other podcasters who are directly aligned with your ideal content, customer, or client. And then also making sure we're activating and getting more brand awareness on your behalf. So if you need help with any of those things, certainly reach out to me. You can find my information here. Hello, itisidanimarie.com. Hello at itisidanimarie.com. All right. And if you don't know, we are meeting in Atlanta in a little less than 2 weeks now. And for the purpose of attending the Black Effect Podcast Festival, here is our agenda, tentatively speaking. We're kicking it off at Pullman Yards, stopping at a content studio, doing live pitches on the bus, a scavenger hunt and bingo experience, some content creation, and then making another stop at a tech founder experience, and a final stop at the Pullman Yards for the Black Effect Podcast Festival for the second half of our day. Tickets are still on sale. They will go up the week of the event, so make sure you grab your tickets now. And actually, included in the ticket price is the access to the bus, meeting with another group of podcasters. And if you haven't yet launched, you get lifetime access to a launch course. So definitely a lot of bang for your buck. And that is what we plan to do in Atlanta, because I think it's important for connecting with the community. Obviously, you are going to be in the presence of a podcast strategist and coach, and then working on getting you some content so you can repurpose that content and establish yourself and look more like a legitimate podcast or a professional podcaster or a really nice looking brand, right? So that's the goal of what we are doing and why we're activating in Atlanta, to get the most from the experience. But without further ado, let's just jump right in. This is helping set the tone. So if your podcast isn't making money yet, it's not just about getting more listeners to get the right attention and garner the right attention and start making money. A lot of times it's because you're not leveraging the listeners that you already have. So we've been taught to chase numbers, virality, get the most followers, 1 million subscribers on YouTube, etc. But real businesses are built on relationships. So instead of asking, how do I get more people? Start asking, how do I go deeper with the people who are already rocking with me? Because those are the people who will show up, support you, and actively invest in whatever it is that you're building. So let's talk about a micro event and what it actually looks like. So we're going to make this very simple. A micro event is not a big full-on production. It's not a conference. It's not something that requires a huge budget. It is small, it's intentional, and it's built around connection. So this could look like a coffee meetup, a live podcast recording, a park day with your audience, a content day at an Airbnb or peer space location, a game night or a workshop. And I've done about all of these. We used to meet at Garfield, where I live. We haven't yet done a live podcast recording. That's probably the one thing we haven't done. We've definitely done some meetups, and we're planning on doing our first in-person podcast peeps meetup in 2 weeks. I've done some content at peer space locations, and I'm always hosting virtual game nights or workshops. So the goal is simple. Learn to take your audience from passive listeners to people who actually are in the room with you and who are excited to jump in the room because they know you put on really good events and you've curated an intimate space where they feel seen and feel heard. So the venue play, let's stop overpaying for all of these big locations and let's speak logistics and intentionality in creating and curating an intimate micro event instead. So yeah, most of us are still trying to make money from our podcast. So it's not like we have a lot of money to fork out for an event. So if your truth is, I cannot afford to host a huge event, then listen up. You need to position yourself better. So instead of saying, I need to rent your space, say, here I come with a community, with great content and visibility. Here's why we should collaborate. Think about your local restaurants, like your mom and pop shops. Think about coffee shops. Think about co-working spaces, peer space locations. You are helping bring people to their doorstep. And you're creating content that tags them. And you're adding energy to their space. So that's value that you can leverage. Don't just walk in it like a customer, walk in it like a collaborator. Now, let's talk tiered experiences. This is how you get paid. This is where we stop playing small and think about hosting an event that meets the needs of different people, no matter where they are on their journey. So, for example, the free or general admission means that you can come and watch, observe, and be in the room. If you pay the first tier for $25, that means you can actually participate, network, and engage. And then if you pay the $75 or more, that means you actually get featured, you get to speak, or you get content captured on your behalf. It's the same event, but different levels of access. So this allows you to include people who are just getting started and serve people who are ready to scale. And most importantly, you're no longer leaving money on the table. Now, the content multiplier segment, this is the part that makes what you do sustainable. Your event is not just an event, it is a content machine. So from one micro event, you get video clips, testimonials, behind the scenes moments, social proof. So when the time for you to promote your next event, you're not convincing people, you're showing them what they've already missed. A lot of people really are impacted by FOMO. And so by us going to Atlanta, there's a ton of people who say they wish they would have went and attended, even though we haven't attended yet. It's in 2 weeks. But there's a ton of people who already know that they won't be able to make it. So for those people, when you come back with a whole bunch of really good content, rich content, and you have social proof proving that you've built the connections, you've multiplied and repurposed your content, you've met some cool people, you've networked, you've built relationships, you've partnered with other companies in the area. All of that is very convincing and very telling. And again, that FOMO piece, letting people know, hey, you missed out, but maybe you want to join us the next time around. Now, the real strategy, this is how we're pulling it all together. This is the entire ecosystem. And this is the part I really want to hone in on because it's important for you to understand. The event is not the end goal. The event is the entry point. From the event is where you then lead people into your podcast community, your membership, your coaching, your services, your digital products. So instead of waiting for ads or waiting for sponsorships or waiting for brand deals, you're building your own ecosystem. One where people don't just listen to you, they buy into what you're building. So let me share a quick clip, by the way. I was on John Chang's podcast this past week. And on the podcast, we basically covered a gambit of things. But his thing is teaching you how to have enthusiastic live streams, how to be engaging, fun, entertaining, and all of those important things when you're hosting a live stream. And I believe his idea came out of the pandemic where things had to be done remotely. And so he's really honed in on that opportunity to teach this to other people in corporate spaces. And so he's doing really well. But I was on his podcast, and you can go visit the podcast to watch the full episode. Let me share. Actually, comment below if you want me to share the link because I haven't posted it yet, but I will send it to you individually if you are interested. But there is a segment where he's asking me about where do I think podcasting is headed, and a lot about podcast conferences and how he's doing things, and then my understanding of how things are being done inside the industry from my perspective. So I'm going to share that clip with you now. Again, speaking to the topic at hand, we're talking about how to turn your podcast audience into a sold out micro event. And again, this is my feature on John's podcast, not currently live on my YouTube channel, but if you would like the link, let me know. 2020, 2021. So it was around that time. And it was the, if you guys are in the Tacoma area or Seattle area, it was the Grand Cinema in downtown Tacoma.
Oh, very nice.
So it's a private kind of locally owned cinema.
So Danny Marie, one of the trends that's actually just emerging now, I'm just telling you that you're way ahead, is podcasting during a conference.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that what happens is they bring the podcast, but they bring it on stage as a segment of a conference. And they're gaining a lot of success around it because it's doing something different than a fireside chat, and it's doing something different than a keynote. Have you seen this trend, or why do you think this trend is just emerging now?
Absolutely. Well, I liken it to just like a music artist doing a concert. To me, it's very similar. You see a lot of podcasters who are now going on tour and doing their live shows. So that's what I liken it to. And I think it's popular because there's obviously a ton of ways to monetize your platform, that being one of them. And that engagement piece, right? You find out who is actually your avid supporters and where are they located. And then you make that one of your first stops on your quote unquote podcast tour. And so I just think that it's another way to touch the people, right? Going back to that keyword, authenticity. People want to see you in person and not just on a computer all of the time. And that's another fun way to keep people engaged and keep your avid supporters sticking around, is to show up and shake hands with them. Let them know you appreciate their support by doing the live podcast show. So the monetization piece, and then just keeping people engaged and following you on your podcast journey, is why I think it's very smart to do a podcast live show.
Okay, what are some of your, besides your own, right? What are your
So go back and listen to that full episode, but he was saying it a little differently in the sense that now conferences are making their conference, making podcasting a part of their conference by hosting like a live podcast recording in the middle of a conference. So instead of a workshop that you attend or like a caucus that you walk into where there's someone who's facilitating a panel or you have someone standing in the front, now it's hosting a live podcast recording. So it's a little different from my perspective, but every person that I follow who's a podcaster, especially from the Black Effect Podcast Network, they do podcast tours. So they make stops, just like any artist that you love, they're making stops on tour. We have, speaking to myself and my friend Tango, we've pitched an idea because we did notice that in the market, it was a missed opportunity. A lot of conferences should be leaning more into podcasting. And so what does that look like? Just like John explained, where you have a segment on the agenda at the conference, or post-conference, you should be repurposing that content and turning it into a podcast episode. So if there was a webinar and it was a great webinar that had a lot of attendance, I would repurpose that content and turn it into a podcast of maybe the panel, of maybe the one person that was speaking. So there's a few ways that conferences and podcasting make a lot of sense. And I just wanted to highlight that point because we're talking about attending the Black Effect Podcast Festival later this month. Here are some of the panels that are on the agenda. We have the audio and media development with Manny Mills, Kevin on Stage, Tika Sumter, Carlos King, and Carla Ramirez. We have the AI Evolution and Future panel with Mimi Brown, John Hope Bryant, Ian Dunlap, Bridget Todd, and Cliff Worley. And then we also have the Gen X to Gen Z panel talking about how do we bridge the gap with Antoinette Miller, Jamila Bell, Chanel Sykes, and Charlemagne the God, also Mecca Evans. And so if you're just now tuning in, we're talking about how to turn your podcast audience into a sold out micro event. And the reason why we're talking about this is because we are attending the Black Effect Podcast Festival, but also you could be doing some of this on your own. It's time for some of you guys to scale. It's time for some of you guys you've hit a plateau. You're not getting the listener engagement, or you're not able to retain the listeners that you already have. Maybe it's time that you do something different instead of the mundane, same regular podcasting stuff. Yes, do the podcast, but also start working on doing some events as well. You need more visibility, you need growth. And so consider doing a micro event in your area, i.e., like what we're doing in Atlanta, our activation. We meet every Saturday, and we've been planning for the past 4 weeks ahead of attending the Black Effect Podcast Festival. So you have one more Saturday to join us before we head out. If you want that information, please let me know. Last thing before we head out from this live, I'm curious, where are you in terms of, have you ever hosted your own event for your podcast audience? Are you number one? Yes, and you plan to do it again? Are you number two? Yes, but it didn't go so well? Are you number three? No, but I thought about it. Or number four? No, never considered it. Let me know in the chat. Are you 1, 2, 3, 4? And I'll leave that up for just a little longer. Also, if you're not a member of our group on Facebook, you should certainly join us. It's definitely the best podcast group for true connection, real authenticity, and helpful tools to help you scale as an indie podcaster. So the name of the group is Podcast Support Group for Indie Podcasters. Okay. And that said, please answer the chat. Let me know if you are 1, 2, 3, 4 with the poll. Have you ever hosted your own event for your podcast audience? Please share this episode with a friend. Ticket sales are increasing starting next week. So right now, they are $147 for the VIP access on the bus or the van that we're going to rent. And general admission is $97, and that will go up as well. But with your ticket price, you get a seat on the bus, you get content clips, you get access, lifetime access to my Launch Your Podcast in 5 Days course. And then you get about 30 to 60 day follow-up on how to keep the momentum going after the event. But it's going to be a great time. My podcast peeps, on top of new people that we've met, new people who have found us because of these lives, and they're also joining us. So we're expanding our community, and I've talked about this ad nauseum. There's no way you're going to scale your podcast alone. A lot of you guys, to be quite honest, you've been looking, and I can see like who's taking my advice. And then I hear from some people, I listened to what you said on that one episode, and a lot of people are taking the pieces, and that's great. But now it's time to elevate, and you cannot do that again just alone at your computer. You have to get outside, touch grass, connect with people. And then what do you do once you've done all of that to keep everything going and afloat? You need probably coaching or some type of support as you create that momentum and buzz. How do you keep it going? So like, for instance, because I know I'm going to be selling tickets for the Black Effect Podcast Festival. We're not sponsored by Black Effect, but we're doing an activation the morning of Black Effect. And then we're going to, as a collective, go into the festival together. So we're doing something adjacent to the Black Effect Podcast Festival. But because I know I'm doing that, my content strategy has been going live every single day, repurposing content, and a few other things, email blasts, email lists, freebies, and all of that kind of stuff, right? So I don't see a lot of podcasters in my community who are thinking like that, who are using that forward thinking. The people in my community just do the podcast, and that's it. And you're like, why haven't I been able to scale and get downloads? You're not thinking about strategy. You're not intentional. You don't go live even just to say, hey, go watch my episode that just aired. So if you are stale and you show up stale, your content is going to be stale and your growth is going to be stagnant. So again, community is key and integral, I wanted to say instrumental and integral at the same time, integral to your success. So I'm going to stop there. I will see you all tomorrow. You have a lovely day. Again, I am Danny Marie, your podcast bestie, and this is another episode with me.
Bitch on the ride on my bed like a Mustang. See ya. I got a watch on my wrist, it's a bust down. See ya. I'm tryna hop on a flight out of town. See ya. But I sent my baby to bring it around.